Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest Riker. We made our playoff preview, that dropped earlier today, so definitely check that out. We're playing the Orlando Magic in the first round. It's going to be an exciting series, so we break all that stuff down there. And we briefly alluded to this, new information that's coming out. OG Anunoby, he underwent emergency appendectomy surgery after being diagnosed with acute appendicitis. So he's going to be out for at least 2 weeks. I'm suspecting it'll be longer because most of the people that have gotten their appendix removed, that usually takes a lot longer than 2 weeks to recover from. So, we made a whole breakdown on the possible rotations coming into the season, coming into the playoffs. And we were both kind of in agreement that we should run an 8-man rotation, maybe 9, and then Norm and OG would be the two guys that could possibly get the last bit of minutes on the Toronto Raptors roster. Now that he's knocked out, the playoff rotations, there could be another spot open for a guy like McCaw, a guy like Lynn, a guy like Meeks. So what are your just initial thoughts on this happening? And obviously we're praying for OG to get better back
Ben,
as soon as possible.
first of all, fantastic pronunciation of these medical terms. Outstanding. Way better than I could have possibly done.
I have not taken bio since high school, so I don't know.
It sounded right to me. Second, and maybe the biggest question, actually, I'm going to let you start off on this. Maybe this is the center of the whole podcast here, is this right here. Are we missing now an X factor? Because there will be maybe hesitancy in playing him in the second round, as we mentioned, if the guys are doing well. But he could be crucial in a matchup against the 76ers that are a big, long team. And although he's been inconsistent, he is a reliable, long, lengthy, athletic defender. And he fills into that 3 position well, and he can slide down. If he's really only a catch-and-shoot guy, he can slide into the 2 if he wanted to. He guarded James Harden at times. I think it was this season, last season, that he did a competent job.
Yeah, he did the clamp job last season.
He's a guy that I'd like to see as a defensive anchor, but he might get pushed out. And because of that, because of the timing of this surgery, are we missing out on what could possibly be an X factor for the Toronto Raptors in the playoffs?
Well, you mentioned that the Toronto, because he's expected to return before the second round. They say, because every round takes about 2 weeks to incur, so there's expectations that OG will be available after the first round, maybe midway through the second. But you bring up the good point. Will the Raptors even want to bring him back, try and reintegrate him into the lineup after coming back from injury, in the middle of a playoff series? If the team is rolling, if the team isn't, it's tough to, we saw him come back from just a concussion where he only missed 4 games. Right, he looked a bit shook, and obviously when you come back for injury, it takes you a couple games to get back into the groove of things, the shot to be falling and all that. But OG's defense is just so reliable whenever he's on the court, whether he's coming back from injury, because he's been in and out of the lineup all season. There's just been so much turmoil in terms of his second year, so OG's potential and everything will really show through next season. But this year there's been so many ups and downs, but if the Toronto Raptors are flowing well, I could see the Toronto Raptors possibly not having him in the rotation, not trying to risk bringing him back and maybe messing up the groove of certain players or being too cold to shoot from 3, knock down the open shots, because everyone on the court has to knock down open shots in the playoffs. We saw it with the likes of Patrick Patterson, DeMarre Carroll in the past. When you have 1 or 2 players that can be just left on an island, your whole defense, the defense can just compromise the offense by playing 4-on-5.
He could or he could not be reintroduced after the first round, right? That's sort of what you're saying here, and I agree. He might be. To me, it seems I wouldn't if I was the head coach. That seems like a very last year Dwayne Casey mentality. When they were down in series. Yeah, he would experiment in the playoffs with lineups because he wasn't seeing what he wanted to from the starting lineup per se, right? But that playoffs is not time to be messing around with lineups. You stick to something and you make sure that it works, right? So I would be very hesitant as a coach to mess up with any sort of chemistry or even to announce to the guys that there's not consistency, because playoffs, guys need to know what to expect. So just for that point of the matter, you might see him, you might not. If it was me, I wouldn't. But the question that I'm asking you right now, and just are we missing, whether he's played or not, are we missing, or could he be an X factor in the next series? Is this injury a devastating blow? That's the main question that I'm asking here. Or if the Raptors, which they will, advance on to the next round, can they oust the 76ers without OG Anunoby?
I think it's fine. The X factor, we could probably regard Norman Powell as an X factor as well, in terms of just having a guy off the bench that nobody really expects to be an impactful player. But the Toronto, you can run 8 deep in the playoffs. You can run 8 players deep. We weren't even certain if OG was going to play significant minutes in the playoffs before this appendix injury happened. So I don't think the Toronto Raptors are really hurt that much by it, even though it would be a nice luxury to have OG to be able to come in and be a long, lengthy defender against a particular team like the Sixers or the Bucks, who have a lot of long, wiry guys. So he would have been helpful, but I don't think it's a huge blow to this team. And, Patrick McCaw is supposed to be back in the next week or so he's a guy that does similar things to OG Anunoby, and some might argue he's been more consistent this season in terms of especially 3-point shooting, despite the fact he likes to not shoot in a lot of the games he plays, but he'll get a lot of open looks in the playoffs considering the fact all the attention will be on Kawhi and Siakam. So I think the X factor that you kind of mentioned, if we really need it, I think McCaw can certainly provide some of what, maybe not to the same extent, but he could provide some of what OG could
that there, sir, is a hot take. Because it seems to me like we're almost circling back to the last podcast now. What will be the 8-9 rotation, right? If we're basically assuming that Norman Powell is locked in. Nick Nurse has alluded to that he's going to be a rotation piece.
Yep.
But there could still be a 9th player, right? On any given night, you might still want that 9th guy. And come first round, I mean, I think you're going to probably want it, especially with the ease that we expect the Raptors to advance. You'll probably see them go into a little bit of depth, hopefully not too much, right, just to make sure that the rotations stay tight. But you'll probably see a 9th guy get played. So it's interesting to me that you're saying that McCaw might outshine or might step into the place that we would have normally assumed that OG Anunoby would go into. So in the comments, let us know what you think about that. Is OG, are we going to see him completely disappear? Is he going to be a next season guy? Is he going to be retired, on the shelf, riding the pine for the rest of the playoffs? I don't think so. I'm actually a lot higher on OG, and I would like to see him in the matchups in further rounds.
Yeah.
I just don't know how realistic it'll be. I don't know if he'll get reintroduced, and that's the shame to me with the timing of this injury.
Well, the question I posed to you, and we can bring up Jody Meeks and Jeremy Lin, because a lot of people in the comment section are high on those two guys, and we'll get to them after. But the question I posed to you, an unhealthy OG. Because I'm one of the biggest OG fans there is out there. I have an OG Anunoby jersey. I love him, but he has been underwhelming this season, right, in terms of what we expected. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We made a whole video on that regardless. But do you think a healthy, a player coming back from injury, coming back from an appendix injury, an OG Anunoby, is better than a healthy McCaw, even though he's coming back from a thumb issue? Do you really see OG, because you said we both agree that OG is better than McCaw when they're both healthy. But an OG coming back from injury, not really playing in a while.
Well, I don't know. I don't know
McCaw,
what an appendix injury, what the recovery, the rehabilitation is like. I think you maybe have a better medical knowledge about that. The reason that I actually initially in the first podcast that we broke down had picked McCaw is because I like his intensity more than I like OG's intensity. And I think that was something that could have been,
that's fair,
still could be a very valuable asset come playoff time, is how crazy he gets, on shutting down his man or diving for loose balls and all those things, these little things that McCaw just clearly shows the thirst. That's what we wanted to see from Jeremy Lin, right? An actual desire to be out there on the court, fighting for minutes, fighting to be out there, to extend your time. That's the reason that I think McCaw could be a wonderful piece if he's able to go in, maybe not for huge minutes, but maybe in a bit of a lull, maybe the Raptors slip down and have like a 10-point deficit. Put in McCaw, get him to inspire, a couple fast break points, maybe something crazy, just lift people's spirits and then bring the starters back out. I could see him doing that more effectively than OG Anunoby.
Yeah, especially coming back from injury. Just from my experience with people close to me that have had the appendicitis, your energy's just zonked, and you look lifeless when you're coming back from this sort of thing for at least a couple weeks. So I think it'd be tough for him to come back from something like this. But let us know in the comments if you went through it. What do you expect from OG? But could a guy, because we were very high on Jeremy Lin when he initially came in. That hype train has really fallen off track. And Jody Meeks, he's a guy that's performed very well for the Toronto Raptors in the minutes he's gotten. Obviously, they don't play the same position of Patrick McCaw and OG. They're a bit more bigger players, or at least they play bigger than they seem. Do you think maybe Meeks or Lin could possibly be the 9th guy, or is it McCaw that you we're both in agreement that should be getting those minutes if they're awarded to, but from Nick Nurse.
Good point. Meeks, better shooter. Hands down. McCaw, more athletic. Both of them have a little bit of playoff experience. Meeks, obviously more of a veteran in this league. I'm not sure who would play come down to it. I really don't have any idea. Who would you think it would be?
I think it would just be McCaw because he's a much better defender, and Masai Ujiri has crafted this team so there's no defensive liabilities on the court. Not saying that Meeks is a liability, but he's certainly not a plus. So I think McCaw makes more sense there for all the energy reasons.
And when you're looking,
but
that's true. And when you're looking for somebody, when you're looking for your bench to make a difference, it's usually when you're running in a deficit. Right? You don't need your bench guy to come out and do anything extremely important. If you have the lead, then really you're just focusing on, I guess, coasting or whatever. So if it comes down to it, who you're going to really need to play more, I think you probably want the defense more than you just need the scoring, because if you're getting scored on at a high clip, then you're bringing in a three-point shooter isn't really going to swing the game. It could, actually. That's Warriors basketball right there. Just best. They also have good defense. They're just a machine, man. Oh, my God. I just can't think about it until the finals. Exactly.
When we smoke them. But Jody Meeks, and usually they'll come in when there's a lull, as you mentioned, and when the lull is happening with a team, usually the shooters aren't shooting that well, especially a guy like Meeks, who's a very rhythm player, especially at this point in his career. He's not really a game changer. He's more of a guy that will amplify off a wave of strong momentum from the Toronto Raptors. So I think McCaw makes more sense, but Jeremy Lin, are we both in agreement that he really doesn't fit the system? Despite maybe being one of the more talented guys off our bench, he really doesn't fit. He's more of a pick-and-roll guy that needs the ball in his hands. He's not going to be fit into this playoff
I'll be
system.
surprised to see him get run. I'll say that much. It's unfortunate. We did have very high praise for him at the beginning of the season, but I will be shocked if I see Jeremy Lin get significant time in the playoffs outside of maybe if the Raptors are sustaining maybe a 20-point lead or something where they just bring 5 guys in.
Yeah. The final question, if he does get run, could Linsanity happen? Could Linsanity
No, it couldn't. It couldn't happen because Linsanity occurred when it was a depleted roster and they were winning games that they didn't expect to win. So there's neither a depleted roster nor a foreseeable challenge against the Orlando Magic. So he'd have to come in impact time versus really the only series that we would really expect to get knocked off is the Bucks. Right, so he'd have to come in impact time against the Bucks and then absolutely take over a game. No way that's going to happen. Linsanity, he's in the just like OG Anunoby. I think he's been retired for the rest of this playoff season, and he's going to be saved for maybe next season if he stays on the team.
That's a fair statement. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I think we're in agreement. A healthy OG should be in the rotation, or at least the 9th guy, but an unhealthy OG, it probably doesn't make sense to bring him back. But let us know what you guys think. You're the best for making this far. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. We're on iTunes. We're on all these podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all that. So check us out on there if you're interested in listening on those platforms. Ryker, any last words as we head into the playoffs tomorrow? It's happening tomorrow, or you might be listening to this on Saturday. It's happening tonight, or whenever you're listening. I'm excited for Game 1.
I'm extremely excited as well. I think that's a good way to finish it off. Cheers.
Certainly. You guys are the best.